In this video, we're going to learn about classes in Python. So Python is an object-oriented language, and in that we have to learn classes. So let's have a look at Wikipedia. What does Wikipedia says? As per Wikipedia, a class in any object-oriented programming language. Let's understand this. In object-oriented programming, a class is an extensible program code template for creating objects, providing initial values for state and implementation of behavior, etc, 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 etc. So if these all are sounding very scary to you, don't worry, just hold on with this video, just stay tuned with this video. I'm going to make it very simple. Let's talk about in context of Python only, right? So in context of Python, let me take an example from the real life. Let's say you got married and you made a baby. So this baby is nothing but a class. This baby grew up and you taught her and you taught numbers to her. So this teaching will be referred as properties. Now after teaching the numbers, so like this you can add many properties to her, like you can teach her dancing, singing, etc, 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 right? So those all will be referred as properties. Now then after teaching this, you also explain the techniques to use these numbers like addition, subtraction, multiplication, etc, 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 and you explained all these things to her. These techniques are nothing but will be referred as method. So what we see is a class has a property and method. Whenever you use a method in certain circumstances, that's called the instances. So it's that simple. Class has properties, methods. Whatever features you add to the class, that's called as properties, and whatever techniques you define, that's called the method. And whenever you use a method in certain circumstances, that's gonna be called as instances. Now let's have a look at real example. Let's create a class in Python and try to understand that. So well, here we are in Python. Now I'm going to create a new thing. Let me take you to another window. Here it is. Okay, now here in Jupyter Notebook, I'm going to create a class, and in that I will explain you all these things which I just showed you. Alright, so here we are. Now I will start with creating a class. So to create any class, all that you need to do is just simply say class, okay, and give a name to it. For example, I'm going to say it calculator, okay, and then put a colon over here and hit enter. So the moment when you hit enter, it comes over here. Now you're gonna define the properties, right? So for that you're gonna say diff, and this is the default thing which you're gonna use for now, right? And later on we will see what all are other things, right? So this is the init property, we can say, and in this you're gonna use self. This is the default thing with Python, right? So this I will explain you what it is exactly. Okay, this is nothing but just like a table you can consider, and then you provide here the other parameters, like let's say number 1, number 2. You will have to pass on these parameters whenever you are calling this thing. Okay, now you put this. Now because I said that self is nothing like a table, so in this table you are going to create the variables, and in this variable the value which you will pass is number 1. Whatever comes over here, that will be stored in num1. Then you're gonna create another variable which is nothing but num2. Remember, these are all the properties like dancing, maths, etc, right? And then you're gonna create over here number 2, right? So you're gonna store number 2 over here. Let me just quickly delete this thing. Okay, now once this is done, you are done with teaching the things to her. You are done. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna create the methods. Now let's say def addition. All right, and in addition you're gonna all the things which are available in self table, you're gonna use that, right? So for that, after using that, you want to say return me num self dot num1 plus self dot num2. Similarly, you're going to create another method, def subtraction, and in that again you're going to use everything from self, and then again you're going to say this particular thing. I will use just copy and paste, and this time I want to say give me the difference of it. Then again you're going to use another method which is called multiplication, and in that also I'm going to use everything from this self, right? And then over here what I'm going to do is I'm just simply going to multiply this. Then the another one which I'm going to use is division, and in this also I'm going to use all these things from self, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide it. All right, so this is done. Now after creating this, all that we need to do is call any method out of this class and solve your problem. So what I'm going to do this time is, let's say I'm going to create an instance called add, and in that I'm going to call this function which is called addition, this method, okay? So for that, first thing which I gonna do is call the class which is nothing but calculator, okay? And out of this class, which method I want to call? I want to call addition. All right, and in this I want to supply the value 45 and let's say 5. So this is done, okay? Now oops, it seems like it just threw an error. Let's see what is the error. Okay, let me just do this. Here it says addition missing one requirement argument which is self. Why is that so? Let me just debug it. Alright, here I just made one mistake because here we are not doing anything, but here we are just creating an instance. So here we're gonna say calculator and just supply the number and then say 5. Alright, and then hit enter. Now add is an instance which has been created. On this, out of this instance, I just want to call addition, right? And just hit enter. Now you see these two numbers are added. Similarly, I want to call add dot let's say subtraction. Subtraction is a method. Out of that, I'm just trying to call it, okay? So this is how you can call any method which is available in this particular class. So this is going to be very helpful. Let's say if you have a list of functions, you can just create a class of that all those functions, right? And you can keep on calling any function whenever it is needed. Now if you want to understand this, I'll just give you a quick review of this thing, right? So let's say this is the function which you just created, and over here if you understand this, this is your properties and this is your method, right? And over here this self is nothing but a table, and in that you are adding all these features which will be nothing but called as variables. Now next thing which you see is these numbers are supplied and stored over here. So these are nothing but the values stored inside that, okay? Now so this is how you can just create a class and store numbers inside that. If you don't want to create this kind of instances, you can directly call this, right? Let's say calculator, okay? And in this you supply the value, let's say 20, and you supplied another value which is called 10, and now on this I want to call the method multiplication. You just do this and here you got it, 20 to the 40. So I just hope that it was clear to you and it was simple. I tried to keep it simple. Just in case if you have any doubt, put that into the comment section. I will definitely try to get back to you. Until then, happy learning and wish you very all the best.